the Chronicles will be the first document, performative document, because you must remember this is the oral culture. Most of the Poles cannot read, cannot, of course, write, and so this is the Chronicle, is the soundscaping performance. This is the performance that had to be performed alive. And that's why I will just show you in a moment how much the language structure of this Chronicles is suggesting the live performance. And so the performative culture was for our story starting with the performances of the Chronicle. And the first Chronicle that we have in Poland is written in Latin, and it's called by scholars Gesta Principium Ponorum, the deeds of the princes of the Poles. Purpose of this was to glorify Duke Bolesław III. In Polish, we called him Krzywousty because he had something, right mouth. And he was living, as you can see, at the beginning of the 12th century. In approximately, and in this chronicle, we have the most fundamental stories of Polish national identity. First, in approximately 966, Prince Mieszko married Dąbrówka, who was described as the most Christian woman in Bohemia. And with Dąbrówka, with Bohemian queen and wife, not queen, wife, because he was a prince. And so with Bohemian wife, he actually accommodated Christian religion. And he became a Christian. Of course, all these dates are mostly discussed today. There are scholars who do not agree on any details, so we are not sure. This is approximate around this. When I was in the elementary school in the communistic Poland, they taught me that this 966 is definitely the diet. But today, it looks like it's not. And we don't know when, but around this time, this Christianization did happen. And so somebody foreign came to us, and we decided that we will perform in this common new Christian culture. Another very important event in this story is the story of the first Polish king. Bolesław I, the brave, chrobry, we call him in Poland. He was crowned just before his death in 2025. But before that, 25 years earlier, there was something like the final rehearsal of the official coronation. And this is the text I will read to you from the Chronicle. Gal begins the history of Poland with the coup. Duke Popiel invited everybody in Gniezno, the capital of the prison, to celebrate the ritual cutting of his two sons' hair. Two mysterious strangers arrived at the city gates, but they were driven away. Disgusted by the rudeness of the townsmen, these two foreigners found themselves before the little cottage of a poor plowman. Piast, his name was. He invited them to the cutting of his son's hair. Siemowit was the Piast son's name. And Piast offered them his modest means. Marvels began to happen. The dishes at the prince's feast suddenly became empty, and beer and meat miraculously multiplied in the poor hut. Shortly afterwards, Popiel was driven out of Gniezno and eaten by mice. And the people entrusted power to Siemowit, son of Piast, the son of the hospitable plowman. The beginnings of the Piast dynasty in Gallus' version are full of theatrical twists. Nobody knows who this Gallus guy was. Some people think that this was probably a priest coming from France. He had to be extremely well educated because the Latin is of high quality. But we still don't know. And we think that he was very much connected to this court of the Bolesław III, the Rough-mouthed, because he devotes to him the most beautiful verses, and he is the main character in this. And there is a lot of poetry, and there is this rhythmical prose, and also there are verses which are extremely lyrical, like this one. This is the beginning verses of the poetry, which is summarizing the events. This is very, very interestingly written, this whole chronicle, that you get introduction when this Gallus is writing something personally, but you never know how much this is constructed and how much this is kind of testimony. But he starts the first book with the poetical summary of the events. And because this Bolesław was his main supporter, you can see how well this is constructed, this pure disyllabic rhyming. Bolesłaus dux implitus deidono progenitus hic per preces egidii sum sit causa exordii. And this was translated for Polish by Marian Plezia and became part of the crucial identity song of my generation. In Polish, this was even more poetical. You can just read this in Polish. I would just give you an example of this song by Ewa Demarczyk, one of the most important singers at the time. Bolesław, książę wstawiony, z Boga narodzony, modły świętego i Jego przyczyną narodzin Jego. And this became something like the poem of my generation. In English, it means like this. Duke Bolesław, the illustrious, by God's grace, was engendered thus. His entry into life he made when prayers of St. Giles were said. So, as you can see, not a deep meaning, but still introduces Bolesław.